The following is an EHC media production.
The Black Box, Tears or Cheers. It's an urban science fiction novel written by Bags Costello. Yeah, man. A 2-mile-wide alien spaceship speeds towards Florida, showing bad intentions. Stark terror visits the world of a young hip-hop urban rapper, Little Bubba Riley, who comes into possession of the Black Box. Smorshka Grevelenko, Russia's ruthless covert agent, brutally murders Bubba's older brother, mercilessly stalks Little Bubba, and Peaky Grayson, his schoolteacher, determined to get the Black Box from them. After a fierce firestorm of conflagrations, confrontations, and escalations, an unrecorded triangle morphs into a magical love story. Little Bubba finds himself yoked to the President of the U.S., who sends him and the Black Box into space towards a final life-and-death struggle with the alien ship to save the world from an eternity of nothingness. It's a new millennium year, 2014, and the scene is Los Angeles. Head on over to Amazon today and get your copy of the Black Box. Oh, and don't forget, man, later next year, we're almost at the end of the year, next year, the book on tape version of the Black Box is coming to you. It'll be available for purchase, and of course it's narrated by yours truly, Emir Blackbane Costello.
What's going on, RWT family? This is your host of Smack Talk, Moses Marquez, and I'll be coming at you each and every Wednesday with a new episode of Smack Talk, where I give my review and recap of SmackDown Live. I am here for you, my listeners. So if you have any questions for me that you want me to answer on the show, please feel free to message me following SmackDown Live, and I will do the best I can to get your questions answered. This has been your host of Smack Talk, Moses Marquez, and we'll see you around the bend, boys and girls. Hope to catch you on Wednesday.
The following program contains scenes of violence. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the RWT podcast.
Good morning, RWT family. My name is Emir Blackbane Costello, and I'd like to welcome you to the RWT podcast. Bum, 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 bum. Man. Do I have quite the show planned for you today? I've made my name in this podcast game by interviewing the everyday man, everyday woman, just your regular, average, everyday fans, people just like myself who love wrestling, people who log on to Facebook and join the RWT family, and then I reach out to them, or they reach out to me, and it's like, hey, let's, get together for an interview, and let's get you on the air, so we can have you tell your story about, how you got into wrestling. Maybe you have a cool, I met so-and-so this one time and these things happened, or, something like that. But I've really enjoyed that, letting the fans come on this show and tell their story about when they started watching wrestling and what it means to them. But the interview that I have for you guys to listen to today is a little bit different than that. Today you're going to hear a really cool show in which I had the opportunity to interview the Morrison brothers. And that is MarQ Morrison and Ren Morrison. And they are the creators, producers, and directors of a mockumentary all about wrestling, and that is called Florida Bush League Wrestling. Now, of course, I had the chance to watch this movie, and it was funny, man. I gotta say, it was freaking hilarious. And so it was really important that I got a chance to interview these guys, and of course they were super gracious and they obliged. So I had them come on the show, and we had a really good conversation. So you guys are going to hear that coming up after the break here, and they're going to get a chance to tell you a little bit about their background as fans of wrestling, what they grew up watching, what inspired them to make this movie, You'll also hear about another movie that they made that perhaps never saw the light of day. Maybe there's still hope for it. We will see during that conversation. But before I play that interview, I'm going to take a quick break. And immediately after the break, you will hear MarQ and Ren Morrison talk about Florida Bush League Wrestling. I'm your Mayor Black Band Costello. This is the RWT podcast. I'll see you after the break.
What's going on, everybody? This is Moses Marquez, your host of the Major League Show, the podcast for diehards. I'll be coming at you each and every week with a new episode of the Major League Show, where we dive into all things New Japan Pro Wrestling, from matches to big news to anything in between. So if you're a diehard or you're just a fan, come visit me each week, where I will bring you all the latest and greatest from New Japan. Hope to see you next week.
Hey guys, this is Brian Green here, your host of WhenXT, your weekly insight into the who, what, when, where, why, how, what happened on NXT, and that's a pretty clever name, huh? I think I outdid myself with that one. I welcome your feedback so we can chat all the good, bad, and ugly coming out of Full Sail University, and how this important brand and everything surrounding it can change the future of wrestling forever, brother. Check out new episodes every Thursday on the RWT page, and I hope to see you later, dudes.
Can't just say, hey, I'm a wrestler. There has to be a lot of work involved and a lot of training.
This is really what I should be doing.
He is known as Big Thing.
Big Thing? It should be Big Fat Thing! I don't know how this loser got a shot with me. I'm the champ. It's all over for you. I'm gonna make you sorry you ever stepped in the ring.
Join two regular guys as they try to break into big-time professional wrestling. Rent or buy this hilarious comedy at FloridaBushLeagueWrestling.com.
1, 2, is this on? Yo, Jimmy, hit me with that Triple H. Yeah, you let the music keep playing, Mr. Don.
Welcome back to the RWT podcast. I, of course, am your host, Emir Black Bane Costello. And as promised, I have two very special guests on the line with me, and that would be MarQ and Ren Morrison. How you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Great, man. So listen, I have you guys on today because you guys seemingly have taken your time and your money and your skills and put together a very, very hilarious film that you gave me the pleasure of viewing, private viewing there that you sent to me, which I really appreciated. And I just wanted to get a chance to interview you guys today and kind of find out who you guys are and how you got into wrestling and what led to you guys making the film. So let's start with MarQ, man. What can you tell me that got you into wrestling from the very beginning?
Just as a little kid growing up in the 80s, Saturday morning wrestling show was always on, and my brother and I would always watch it, and then we'd kind of wrestle around. He'd always beat me, though, because he's older. But like Sweet Brown Sugar, Dusty Rhodes were my big heroes, and Iron Sheik, those guys, yeah. Just every Saturday morning we'd watch it. And we were in Florida, so we'd sometimes we'd go to Eddie Graham Sports Center and see shows there every now and then. That just kind of inspired me. I always had that in the back of my mind. It'd be kind of cool to do like a documentary about it. And then it just kind of, years later, we were looking to do a film, and we started out doing it as a documentary. But you can talk to Ren a little bit, too, then we can talk about the movie as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Ren, MarQ mentioned that you're the older brother. What was it about wrestling that kind of captured your eye when you were a kid?
Well, back then there wasn't a lot of cable TV and there wasn't a lot on, but we did have wrestling, like MarQ said, every Saturday. And he mentioned some of the greats wrestlers. It was in the South. We grew up in Florida, and there was a wrestling promotion there. It was called Championship Wrestling from Florida. And it was hosted by Gordon Soley, who was an incredible talent, an incredible announcer, and just brought so much to the promotion. But the wrestlers, like he mentioned, like Dusty Rhodes, Sweet Brown Sugar, the Iron Sheik, Bugsy McGraw, Hacksaw Majake, just all these characters, all these wrestlers that were so incredible to watch. You know, we were looking to do a movie, and we both really loved wrestling. You know, it was a big part of our childhood, and it was something that interested us, and we were, trying to come up with a story and come up with some ideas. And, wrestling is what we chose to base our movie on, we started off doing a documentary called Beyond the Mat, and we just went to all these different hardcore wrestling promotions, kind of low end, VFW halls and things like that. Lots of blood, lots of chairs, people getting beat with chairs, stop signs, all barbed wire, all kinds of stuff, just melees. And started interviewing people in that situation, and got inspired to want to do something more narrative, more like fiction, more kind of a mockumentary type thing, and make a story about guys trying to make it into wrestling. And that's kind of where Florida Bush League Wrestling came from. It all those origins, our youth, and then also the start of the documentary, which then ended up being our comedy that we made, Florida Bush League Wrestling.
Now, just for clarification purposes, when you say Beyond the Mat, is that there's obviously a super popular documentary that came out called Beyond the Mat. Are you guys the ones that made that one? Is that the one you're referring to?
No. Am I getting the title wrong, Mark?
No, it was Beyond the Mat, but we did it way back in was it 2000 that we started that?
Yeah, this was a long time, and we never made it.
Oh, okay.
We never screened it. We edited a version that was, we kind of watched and decided that it just wasn't what we really wanted, so we just used bits and pieces of that at the beginning of our film. Now you can actually see some of the real wrestlers that were in the documentary.
How are you guys? Because here's my thing. I'm a huge wrestling fan, and it's so much of my life is about wrestling. I do 2 or 3 podcasts on my page. I produce a couple other shows for guys on my page who are willing to take their time to do it. And so much, I go to live events, all this stuff. Yet, I wouldn't know how to access the industry. How are you guys getting into these promotions to be able to interview these wrestlers and get the behind the scenes stuff going?
Well, we just started hitting the roads and going to the events, and then we talked to the promoter, and they're all happy because we're shooting a documentary, and we included them. It's kind of good marketing and positive marketing to them. I don't know if it's changed recently, but they're very open to us filming and just, shooting their guys. And then we meet the guys backstage, and that's how we met Psycho and American Pride, because they were actually at an IPW event, and we talked to them, and they were down with being part of the film that we were doing.
That's fantastic. Yeah, both of those characters, I loved each of them for different reasons. But since we're talking about them, yeah, let's jump into the movie. So, when did you guys realize, we're doing this? We're actually going to make a mockumentary and make a comedy and kind of stretch our writing muscle and kind of get all this stuff together?
Well, it was back in I think it was I graduated film school in '92, and then my brother was already living in Chicago, working for a photographer, doing photography, and I went up there for a little while and learned a little bit about that. And we both ended up back in Florida at the same time, and we just both said we want to do a film. I had the film background, I had connections to get equipment, and my brother wanted to write the screenplay, and he wrote it, and it was really good. So we knew we had something, and we're just let's do it. I mean, we did it on a micro budget, and I don't know, maybe Ren can add a little more to it.
Yeah, we just took it from there, and some of the actors, excuse me, that you see in the movie, like Golden Graham and Paul, who was Big Thing, or Sweet in the movie, they were comedians and comic actors that we worked with in Chicago. And we, when I was writing the script, I had them in mind for, Graham definitely for the manager, and Paul definitely for the up-and-coming wrestler. And so we brought them in, they read the script, they loved it. We flew them in down to Florida, and the rest went from there. We shot in about a total of 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more, 2.5 weeks. Brought everyone in, put all our money into it that we had, and just, it was a passion of ours, the story, the part that wrestling played in our youth, and trying to share some of that in the movie, but also making it funny, there's moments where it is kind of dramatic, and there's moments where it might be a little touching, but it's definitely a comedy and a mockumentary, and that's just kind of how it all came about. It came from Mark's film background, my writing background, wrestling both being a background for both of us. It was just something that we felt really strongly about, in a story we really, like, once it was written and we worked on it, we really felt strongly about telling the story or showing the story and sharing it with people, and just, sharing wrestling and, like, what we feel about wrestling and a part that it played in our lives growing up.
It says a lot about you guys that you were able to kind of pull together and get this thing done, because I think one of the things that happens is, like, a lot of people have a dream, but it seems like there's so many people that are afraid of, a full day of hard work. Or, you guys, what it took for you guys to pull together the actors and raise the money and get it all shot. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into that, because you don't really know if this is going to be successful. I mean, you're just kind of taking a chance because you believe in it and you think you can make something great, and you're hoping that when people watch it, they see what you see. And just the fact that you guys went out and did that, I think, is incredible, man. And so I had the chance to view the movie, and when I first started watching it, I didn't know it was a mockumentary. I didn't know it was a comedy. So I was kind of watching, and I was like, okay, this is funny. Where is this going? And then immediately just from the very beginning, it's awesome. And it tells such a great story. Stuff I didn't really think about. People, the character, the big, what's his name? The Big Thing?
Yeah, Big Thing. Yeah, Paul.
That guy, this is a guy, he's got a little bit of weight to him, and you got this guy in all kinds of compromising positions. He's wearing the singlet and everything like that, and just, how do you find people who are so comfortable with bearing so much of their soul on camera?
Well, they're just. Okay. I'll say something real quick. They're just incredible actors, comedic actors, and I mean, that was the great part. Like, we give them the story, and they had the whole script memorized when they showed up. I mean, that's 90, 100 pages of script. I mean, we got it. Mark got it down. He did all the editing to make the story, a little more tighter, funnier. And he knows what to get rid of and what to keep. So we shoot at least 100 pages or more. They had it memorized. They were totally committed to the script. They were really into it. And, I feel they felt that connection with these two guys trying to make it. And they were just so, again, a lot of what I wrote was geared towards them being those parts. So I knew these people. I knew what they were capable of. But they just amazed me. I think they amazed us, and just their commitment to it, and just working with people that are so professional and just able to become those characters. It's just kind of weird sometimes. Like, you write a character, you create a character, and then you see another person, an actor, like, bring it to life, and there's just no undervaluing the power of good actors. They really become those characters. When they're committed people, they become those characters, and it just makes you feel like, wow, you just made this two-dimensional thing on paper into a three-dimensional person. And it's amazing to watch. It's amazing to work with people like that. They were really, really good.
Did the Big Thing, does he have any kind of background in wrestling? Because, to an extent, he took a few bumps and stuff like that, and I was just thinking, I wonder if this guy really wrestles, because I was sold on his character. I viewed him as somebody who, in spite of the comedy, I felt like he took the craft seriously,
As far as we know, he never had any wrestling background, but he said he studied and watched a lot of, like, wrestling tapes, like old tapes and DVDs, but yeah, he just was committed to the part.
I think the most telling part is I guess I can't give it away. That would be a spoiler. Oh well. But yeah, he was committed to the part and willing to do anything, and you could see in the work he does with American Pride towards the end, I can't give it away, I guess, but you have to watch the movie. But you can just kind of tell there, he's not a wrestler. Like, he's big, and he was committed to the role, but like, I don't know if he has any wrestling background, but they studied so much wrestling footage. They really got into the roles, really got into the parts, and they were just great to work with.
So Here's the next thing. So you guys got this all put together. You shot it yourselves. You did all your own editing. It was written by you guys. Then how do you go about getting this out to the public? Like how do you get eyes on this thing?
Well, people like yourself giving us interviews and just grassroots marketing. Like we've done a bunch of Facebook ads, and then we're actually Graham has his own podcast as well. It's Comedy Film Nerds, and they review all kinds of movies, and he's going to do a review on it. And hopefully, just slowly but surely, we'll gain some traction. I mean, it's tough with that much of a budget. You know, it's just
another thing though is we do film festivals, and one we did recently. What was the name of the festival, Mark? It's in Orlando Central.
Orlando Film Festival. We got
that was a great one for us.
Yeah.
You know, because we got a lot of people to see it there, and it's great seeing the reaction. I mean, it's one thing to work on it, and I'm sure Mark, editing-wise, has seen it 1,000 times. I've seen it, you know, hundreds of times, all the footage. But to watch in a theater full of people and hear everyone laugh, you know, and then doing a Q&A session afterwards where people are really into the story and, you know, wondering about the characters and wondering how it was done, just like you're doing. You know, that's really great for us too, and that works for us too, just word of mouth, people finding out about it. The director of the festival was really into the film. Mark can speak a little bit about that, I think, if you could, Mark.
Yeah, the director of the festival, because the film festival had a bunch of just amazingly, like, cinematography films that were just really high-budgeted films. And he realized this was a low-budget film, but he said just the kind of the grittiness of it and the low-budget feel of it and the acting, he said, just took him. He loved it. He said he was laughing so much. And we ended up getting nominated Most Outrageous Film at the Orlando Film Festival. And it was pretty nice because a lot of the people in the audience were actual filmmakers. And we thought for sure they were just not going to like it because it's not, like, super high-end cinematography, because that's not what we're going for. We're going for, like, the 80s style feel of wrestling where it's just, like, TV look. But they all loved it. They loved the choices we made, cinematically, editing, and as far as scripts and everything.
Yeah, it's got to be great to be, first of all, when you're sitting in a group, a theater full of your peers, essentially, and you're getting the laughs, that's better than a theater full of regular people. Because if you have people that do what you do and they're impressed by you, you're doing something right. That's one thing. Also, speaking of the cinematography and the grainy look of it, far too often movies rely on special effects and stuff like that to carry it through. And when a movie like your guys' is that does, and it definitely gives off that feel of the 80s. I'm an 80s baby. I'm born in 86. And so when I was watching the movie, I was like, yeah, this definitely feels like a blast from the past. And so I think a lot of times, like, people in this generation, they're used to seeing things look a certain way. And the fact that the writing in your movie is so good and the actors brought those characters to life so well, that's what's impressive, because it doesn't matter. There wasn't, like, you know, there doesn't need to be stunts or anything, special effects. It's just the writing is good enough to carry the film all on its own. And I think that's fantastic, man. You guys did a really good job.
Thank you. That's really great to hear.
Is it nerve-wracking though, to be in the theater while people are watching, like, before they start reacting, before you hear, like, you know, laughter and applause, let's say leading up to that night, what's going through your mind about how people may react to your film?
For me, I was just coming more from the cinematography and how it's going to screen. I'm like, we're going to get eaten alive, because all the films today are, you know, 4K, HD, shot on, you know, $20,000, $30,000 cameras. And I was just like, we're going to get eaten alive. Let's just go do it. So, yeah, I was just nervous more about the screen and how it was going to go. I was confident about the story, but for me it was more about just the way it looked blown up on a large screen. It's probably
for me, I think it was from the writing perspective, story perspective, is that we're in the midst, you know, film festivals, I don't know how to articulate it, but it's just, they're so into film and things looking beautiful and beautiful actors and great stories and incredible effects and music and cinematography. So that's their bar. That's their standard. I mean, I think we had story and editing covered and all of that type of thing, but what wasn't, a beautiful Titanic type movie or anything by any stretch of the imagination. And so for me, it's like, this is what we're surrounded by basically at a film festival. All these incredible looking, incredible, famous actors, some of them, and beautifully shot films. And then here's our little film. Like, are people even going to show up? And if they do show up, most of them will be filmmakers. And usually filmmakers, they're brutal. They're just brutal. Any little technical thing wrong, oh, I can't believe that. I can't believe that happened, but they were laughing. They loved our movie. And I couldn't believe it. Like, to me, it just was the greatest feeling. And some of our family was there. I was nervous about that. And friends were there. But it just went really well. And I think it spoke a lot about the movie that the director of the festival, you have to imagine, sees how many films were in this festival, Mark? 400 or 300?
It was like 300.
Yeah, and so he's seen so many films, but he watched our film at least twice, during this time period, and just said it just made him laugh. Like, the feeling to make people laugh and to have people get the story and enjoy the story and not have to think about, this wasn't a high-end budget movie, and there's no CGI, and there's no dramatic soundtrack or, anything of that nature. And for people still to laugh and still enjoy it and to walk away entertained was just like a great feeling inside, because we put in, like a lot of our own money and an incredible amount of man hours, especially Mark with editing. And so it was just a great feeling, and if we never make our money back, which maybe we never will, but like just that feeling of, I felt like we succeeded, at that level, that someone laughed and got the story and enjoyed it. Like, that is success. It sounds corny, but it really is kind of. It makes it feel like what you did worked, and you succeeded at some level. So that was a great feeling, I think, at that festival for sure.
That's awesome, man. And you know what? I don't think it's corny at all. I mean, I too am a dream chaser. There's maybe people could say that podcasting's not a huge deal, but it was always a dream of mine to have my own radio show. And I do voices, and I create content, and I do so much stuff on my own time, on my own dime, but I do it because I'm passionate about it, And so I get what it's like to put your all into something like that. And here's the thing: it's good that you guys are making it clear to the people listening that, like, this thing looks grainy on purpose. That was the feel we were going for, because it would be a shame if somebody cut that movie on and just because it didn't immediately, like, let's say it's 2018. If somebody was to look at your movie and go, "Oh, well, this thing looks old," and immediately shut it off, they would be missing out on something golden just for a stupid reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So you guys, you got the script writing down, you got the editing, you got the cinematography, but I gotta figure this out. Are either one of you ever gonna stretch your acting muscle and maybe appear in one of your own movies?
That would be Ren more so than me.
Yeah, it would probably me. I've tried it. Like, I was like, I'm really, like, as part of, like, being a better writer, and, like, we both directed. I'm like, to be a better director, I need to kind of understand what they're doing. So I took some acting classes, and gosh, I wish I could say I was really good, but it was really hard. But I think that helped me to understand just how incredible it is to be for actors to do it. It's just like, because there's thousands of people that try it, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people trying to do it. We know all the big names, just like wrestling. Like, we know the big names, but there's all these other people trying to make it. It is so hard. I mean, I'd be more likely to do it probably out of the two of us, but it is hard. I did 2 classes, and it was hard. It was really hard, let me say. But yeah, I'd go in front of the screen, I think, more easily, but I don't know how successful I'd be at it. I don't know.
Did either of you guys ever have dreams of maybe being a wrestler someday?
Oof, I'm so skinny. I
don't think I could do it.
I was built for it. But it was like when we did the documentary where we were going to these hardcore wrestling promotions and kind of lower end things. It was fascinating just to see the people that are trying to do it, trying to make it, getting paid $25 for a match where they're getting beaten and bloodied for real, just out of passion for wrestling and desire to make it. And, I'm 6 foot, like 185 or something, and there are guys like 5'8", 130, like high flyer type wrestlers trying to make it. In your mind, you're going, you're never gonna make it to the big time. I don't think, but you never know. You just never know. And they're out there doing this all the time, like at a VFW hall for $25 a match, and I'm seeing them afterwards, and they're just bloodied up, but they're happy. They're as happy as can be because they're following their dream, and they're trying to make it, and that, I think, is commendable. And you can see some of them in this movie, like some of the people that we interviewed, like they're not going to make it. They don't have the build, but they have the heart and the desire, and they're trying to do it. And that's something incredible. But for me, I don't think I could ever make it wrestling-wise. I don't know. It's a rough, everyone thinks it's all fake and phony, but, behind all of that, there's incredible physicality, there's incredible choreography and motion and movement, and it hurts. We've seen it. Like, it definitely hurts. It's not a joke. It's definitely not a joke.
Yeah, I try to tell people. Oh, go ahead.
I think in the Bush League, like the stuff that we saw, the VFW halls, it's definitely more raw, because they're still learning how to do their moves, and sometimes they mess up and they actually fly out and hit the floor, and they do the razor blades, slashing their foreheads, and you can see some of the older wrestlers just have these scars from years of doing that and never really making it into the big time. So, they definitely put a lot into it, just trying to get that big break.
So I just want to, just to be clear for the people listening, a lot of what you've been talking about just now was that other documentary that you guys made, Beyond the Mat, covering...
Actually, sorry, I remember the name of it. It was Taking It to the Mat.
Oh, okay.
Taking It to the Mat.
Okay.
Yeah, so long ago, and we never released it. It was never released.
So what's the reasoning behind? Because you guys took the time to go out to several promotions and film and interview and do all this kind of stuff. Like, how is it ultimately decided that this thing was never going to see the light of day?
It was just, I think we got to a point when we were doing it. I don't know if it was just like an epiphany or just a moment where we're like, okay, we're doing this, we're getting this type of story, but why don't we make our own story, like our own story about... The documentary stuff was certainly interesting. It was definitely interesting, but it ended up being more like research. It was something that brought us to another point where it was just, we had this light bulb moment of like, okay, let's make a story about wrestling instead of just documenting wrestling and being not an impartial observer. We're interviewing people, but we're hearing their story. We're hearing bits and pieces of all these little things. Like, why don't we take our own, what we've experienced in our youth with wrestling and watching wrestling, and then watching these guys, that are trying to make it into wrestling. Why don't we do a story about that? And that's what we did. We took, made a story about two guys trying to make it into big-time professional wrestling. And so there's elements of that documentary that never really saw the light of day. But, the heart of that definitely lives in this movie. Like, it is what made this movie happen. Like, hearing all these stories from these different people that are just struggling, trying to make it. Just regular guys trying to make it because they love it. And there's no way, if you're doing it for $25 a night and just getting pummeled, that you're not doing it for the money. You're definitely for passion, for love, for belief. You're doing it because you love it. And so we wanted to make a movie about the spirit of that, but to make it into a movie that is comedy, but also has some other moments that I think, you can draw serious lessons from, or, thought-provoking little things about. And, there's moments of feeling in it, and it's also very funny, too. But I felt like that project was a lot like a research project that ended up making this movie happen. One could not exist without the other, for sure.
Yeah. Probably some things you guys were able to learn along the way making the first one that it saved you time. You don't have to make the same mistakes. You already know you know, from making the first one, like we have to do these things this way and do these other things this other way. But now that Florida Bush League Wrestling is made, let's start with you, Mark. What's next, man? The movie's out and it's making the rounds and people are watching. Is there going to be a part 2 in the works? Are you guys going to do something else wrestling related?
Yeah, definitely. We have a sequel. You know, we got the synopsis done, and we're slowly starting to write a little bit more on it. But we definitely have a sequel. Kind of like Where Are They Now? Like 20 years later, what happened to Graham? What happened to Big Thing? It's pretty funny. I mean, the synopsis, but we don't want to reveal too much right now. But yeah, we're definitely gonna have to start looking for some funding because we will have to step it up a little bit on the shooting, I believe, on this one. Make it a little more cinematic. I don't know if we can get away with doing back-to-back.
Twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's sometimes, once you guys get a good fan base going, of course, there's those movies that are made, it's like crowdsourced, crowdfunded. It's like, hey, if you enjoyed this movie, go to this site over here, donate a couple of few, bucks or whatever, and then all of a sudden you get your movie funded by the people who enjoyed the first one, and it's just it's a great feeling.
That's, I think, like an incredible thing about the time period we live in right now. Just like you are able, technology-wise, to do your own radio show. Like, just think about, in the past, you couldn't just say, oh, I'm going to do my own radio show. It's like no matter how much your heart was in it, no matter how much, what ideas you had, you needed to go to someone else or get accepted by someone else. But now, like you can do your podcast, come up with your content, produce, direct, and put it out there for consumption and get followers without relying on maybe compromising what you want or changing what you want to fit what someone else wants to do. And I think that's the beautiful position to be in. Like you're saying, we can crowdsource or try to find an audience that way. I mean, if it wasn't for all the being able to put it up on Amazon.com or put it up on Vimeo for people to watch, like this thing could never have happened, 10 years ago. It just couldn't happen. Now it's a beautiful thing, that people are able to get content out there for everyone, and a lot of voices that never could have been heard before can be heard now. Just like you were saying with your podcast, like, doing it on your own dime and making it happen. Like, you get to have ultimate control about what you're doing with your content and putting it out there for people and finding that audience. That's incredible. When you find people like, oh, they do like what I have to say. They do like what I'm doing. It's just a great thing.
It's such a good point that you bring up, because that's the unfortunate part about making something with somebody else's money is they then have the ability to come in and go, oh, that thing you're doing? Yeah, I don't really like that. Let's do it this way, or the only company that's actually really good at not doing that, honestly, is Netflix. And that's why all the original Netflix shows have been so successful, because they get it. They're not TV writers or producers. They get people who do that, and these people go, I want to make a show. And Netflix goes, okay, here's some money. We'll see you when it's done. And they don't come back together except to review the final product and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And that's why it works. For you guys, 2 questions here. 1, how important was it to have full creative control to make the movie you wanted to make? And second question, if some sort of major player came along and offered to fund the next movie, but you lost some of that creative control, would you do it?
Oh, that's tough. That's really tough.
I think on the second question, I would do it just because it's hard to get funding, and I think we could still make a great film even with someone else putting their hands on it. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think I would do it.
I think also, like, we would do it, but I think to understand, like, I think something that you mentioned about Netflix is, like, even the money people are more savvy now to understand that, if something works and worked at this level, that's why it worked. Like, just making it a glossy product and adding more money to it won't necessarily make it work better, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I think it would be more like distribution. Like, that's where we struggle right now. Like, that's where you struggle. It's like we have made our story. It's getting our story out to other people. Like, that's what Netflix can do. That's what any of the distribution avenues can do for you. It's like they can fund, and like they could give us money and we could make a great story, but ultimately what they do great for us or great for filmmakers is, like you said with Netflix, is that they put it out there and they allow you to have that creative control still, because they understand, like you were saying, like they're not the creative entity, they're not the content maker, they're a distribution channel, and they're really good at that. And if they understand that other people are really good at making the content, that's a perfect marriage.
It is.
So that is what we would hope for. Like that, you would feel like, oh, I don't necessarily need to compromise, or they understand that, yeah, maybe you have to change some things, but like I can't really see like product integration in anything we do, or big thing holds up a Pepsi can with the label just right and drinks a sip and says, I feel better now, or something like that. You know?
It'd be funny, though.
Funny at some level. But
it would be funny, yeah.
So.
There is a guy who, I can't remember his name. He was really famous for working on network television, just recently passed away. And one of the famous quotes that he made, just to speak to the struggle of people kind of changing your ideas, is that he said, listen, when you work on network TV, if you bring a show to network TV and by the time the show airs, it looks anything like your original idea, even if it's only a little bit, you have to consider that a victory. And that speaks to how much the networks take your idea and they go, hey, this is great. All of us here love it. But what if you change this? And what if you move that? And by the time they're done changing and moving things, it might not even be the same title. It might not look anything like whatever you thought it was going to be. It'll be a whole different thing. But they're going to say, hey, we love your show now that we put our personal touch on it. And so that's why it's so important to consider, like, sometimes the source of the money, is it worth it if ultimately you lose the identity of your product? Like, I don't know like how good you would feel about it. Your guys' movie is great.
I don't think I would feel that good about it. I think the funny or ironic part of all that is probably the first thing that they would say to you when they first meet you and want to talk about your content is like, we love how original and creative and different your content in it is. And like you said, by the end of it, it ends up being more what they are used to and what they want to see. You know, like they write like the original creativity, but then it gets watered down as it goes through all the different levels of people that have to make it happen. So I don't think, I mean, we would love to do it and funding would be great. And yeah, that would be the dream. But I think it is a climate where that can happen, where you don't have to compromise as much. I would hope, like that is what I would hope, is it wouldn't be that much of a compromise.
Do you guys have any sort of clear vision of what you want this to all turn into? Because, okay, so Florida Bush League Wrestling is made. It's making the rounds. There's a sequel that's in the works. But overall, like, are you guys meaning to turn yourselves into some sort of company that just produces wrestling movies? Or, like, what's the ultimate goal here?
I think the sequel is the eye on the prize type thing now. Like the main thing is getting this movie seen, because we really, you know, it's hard to come to a point where you feel like, I really like what we did, or feel like everything worked out really well. And I feel at this point with this movie, we're at that place. We like it. We like how it turned out. We like the story, everything about it. We just want as many people to see it as is possible. Like that's the goal, as many people to see this movie as possible, you know, to see the story, hopefully enjoy the story, enjoy the characters, come to know the characters. And then we're really thinking about the sequel. You know, I'm writing on that. We've talked a lot about it and we want it to happen. So that would be the next goal, is the sequel. And then beyond that is, I don't know what the next story would be. And I don't think MarQ knows what the next story would be. Like that's our goal now, is to work on, get this movie seen, hopefully get a sequel done. I don't think it's not a trilogy. I don't think there's a third movie in this story. I think there's definitely the second one coming up. But beyond that, just making good movies, good stories that people enjoy and that entertain people.
If I'm a wrestling fan, and I am, and I haven't seen the movie, but I hear about it on the RWT page and I want to be able to check it out, where do I go?
Well, Rankin uses his voiceover talents and say where to go.
I don't know. But you can just go to FloridaBushLeagueWrestling.com, and there'll be links there to get you to Amazon and to Vimeo where you can rent it or can buy it. The price is right, and I really think you'll enjoy it. We've gotten it to a good place. Mark's done a great job of editing the story down to, where it's very funny and fun to watch, and I can't imagine someone watching it and not getting something out of it, like a moment of laughter or a smile or just a good feeling out of it at some point, or enjoying a character or all the characters, or enjoying the story, or just feeling a little bit better after they've watched it. So I think it's definitely worth checking out, and that's what we want people to see the movie and to enjoy it.
Yeah,
and if you can also check out our Facebook page, because we'll do updates and stuff that's happening with the sequel and what's happening with this film. It's the Florida Bush League Wrestling, the movie. Just trying to get more fans on there.
Yeah, we'll continue to, here on the RWT page, I'll continue to promote you guys. I got a cool commercial spot from you guys, which I appreciate that I'm able to integrate into the podcast and try to get more ears on this thing. Here's another quick question for you. Listen, the internet is a scary, brutal, unforgiving place. Have you come across anybody yet that just was just really rude with their commentary, or if so, how did you deal with somebody just? Because sometimes people are so rude because they're hiding behind a keyboard and they just say things to tear other people down. Like, did you ever think about how you would feel if you read somebody who just completely tried to trash what you made?
I don't know if we've had any. I'm sure there's haters out there, but
yeah, I'm sure
had anything like that. Yeah, and it'll come. It's not. That's just part. I think it's just part and parcel of putting content out there. People are, hopefully everyone loves it. But that's not going to happen. I think if you're doing anything, there's going to be people that don't like it. I think a lot of times it's for their own. It talks more about them than it does about the content. But I don't know who it was that was it Barnum? Someone said that there's no such thing as bad press. Like, if someone's talking about what you're doing, they're talking about it, they're seeing it, and none of it's bad. So I don't know if we've had any really bad comments at this point.
Not yet, but I'm sure the more people see it, we might get something. But yeah.
That's good, man. Listen, I wish you guys all the success. Like, I enjoyed the movie personally. I thought it was fantastic. And I really want to see this thing succeed. I'm excited to see the sequel, and I hope you guys just blow up and just get all the success and good things coming to you, because it's good, man, to see two guys work together, chase down their dreams, and put out a wonderful product. And I'm really rooting for you guys. Any final thoughts here, guys, before we close up shop?
I don't know. I think just like you're saying, people go and put, like you said, you've done with your podcast and we've done with this movie. It's just like, pursue your dreams and do what you want to do and what you feel you were meant to do. Because it's just a great thing. If everyone does that, there's just so many wonderful things that come out of that, at all certain levels, just doing your best and doing what you believe in. So I don't know if Mark has anything else to add to that.
No, it's all good. Just being persistent, because we had to be persistent on a lot of different things with this film to get it where it is. And in the end, we're happy. I guess that's mainly what matters.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's awesome. So, guys, the movie is Florida Bush League Wrestling, and it's about two guys who are trying to make it in the wrestling business. One guy being a wrestler and the other guy being a manager, and it is hilarious. I was in a quiet place when I was watching, and I think I turned more than a few heads laughing out loud. So go ahead and check it out. And just one more time, in case they missed it the first time, what's the website they can go to?
It's FloridaBushLeagueWrestling.com.
Click on that, FloridaBushLeagueWrestling.com, and it'll get you to Amazon or Vimeo, where you can either rent or buy the movie. And then when this show gets posted on the RWT page, click on the comment section and leave some feedback, or I'm sure on any of those sites as well, Amazon and stuff like that. Leave some feedback here for MarQ and Ren and let them know what you think of the movie. So, guys, I want to just thank you so much for being on the show. Honestly, it was incredible to interview you guys. This felt like a really big, special thing for me, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Well, there you have it, guys. That was my interview with MarQ Morrison and Ren Morrison, the Morrison brothers, of course. Two classy guys. Really appreciated them sitting down to have that conversation with me to talk about Florida Bush League Wrestling. And as I said in the beginning of this show, consider my opinion unbiased. I don't know these gentlemen personally, but I can say their movie was hilarious. And it means that much more to know that it's something that they put their own time and money into to create. And let's blow this thing up, man. We got, 3,000 some odd people on this page from so many different countries all around the world. How about everybody click on, Amazon and Vimeo. Go to FloridaBushLeagueWrestling.com and rent or buy a copy of Florida Bush League Wrestling, and then let the Morrison brothers know what you thought of it. Personally, I thought it was freaking hilarious. And how about that? An RWT exclusive. There's talk of a sequel. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the interview, and I plan to make good on the promise to have those guys back on when they are ready to release the sequel to Florida Bush League Wrestling. So other than that, guys, I don't have too much more for you. I want to thank you all for taking your time to tune in today. Let me know what you thought of the show. While I do enjoy interviewing RWT family members, I'm thinking maybe this might be something I should do more often. Branch out and try to get interviews with business insiders, maybe some independent wrestlers, or I don't know, whoever I can kind of get a hold of here. If you enjoyed this version, this format of the RWT podcast, let me know. Let me hear about it, all right? Other than that, guys, I hope everybody has a wonderful day. So I'm going to wrap up here for MarQ Morrison and Ren Morrison. I am Emir Blackbane Costello. This is the RWT podcast, and I will catch you down the road.